juror number 69, that they are now, Terry B.S. Senor, that they are now part of the jury. They are now juror number 12. As to Mr. Mandavi, I'm gonna go ahead and keep him back there, but I'm not gonna put him as an alternate. I don't think that's the proper method. And like I said, I think it's been decided that he's not fit to serve. Is there anything else that needs to be placed on the record?
Nothing on the record.
No, Your Honor. Okay, State, you have a copy of the motion. I'm sorry, your indictment. Okay, and I typically do not give time limits for opening. Just I expect everybody to take a reasonable amount of time. If you hit something like 20 minutes or over, I do tend to just remind you that that time has been passing, but I'll leave you guys to do opening however you like. Okay, let's go ahead and line them up. He's going to line them up now.
Okay. And Judge, I'm assuming read both paragraphs and then let it enter, correct?
Correct. You will enter, yes.
Oh, yeah, sure. Did you do the,
I did the toggle here.
but did you, in the bottom right, you have to click like a driver? Like on your taskbar, all the way on the right?
There. It's easier just to.
Okay, so.
Doesn't look like it's highlighted. Do you want me to move it and put it back in?
Did you press the button? Should. I think I'm on the wrong source, actually. Why is this doing this? Switch over. Oh, no, that is you. No, that's not.
Okay, that's me. Okay, you can take off.
Yeah. And so
Or
then,
I just push this.
and so, yeah, but then the other thing that's important is you see this switcher right here? It's only gonna do that if the red button's here. Otherwise, we have, because if you wanna use this, it's the same HDMI connection.
Okay, well, we're just using PowerPoint for right now, so
Okay.
we'll just set it back up to be able
Yeah.
to use this.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, thank you, Your Honor.
All right, for the jury. You may be seated.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for your patience this morning. There's a couple of things I did want to touch base with you on before we moved on to the bill of indictment. Former juror number 69, Ms. Terry Villasenor, there have been some issues with another juror, so you are now part of the jury. You are no longer an alternate. I wanted to let you know that. It is my understanding from the deputies that one or two of you may have some back issues, may have some issues sitting for a long period of time. I wanted to tell you, please feel free to do what you need to do in order to make yourself feel comfortable. If that means standing during a portion of the testimony or the trial, please do so. If something happens to where you need to get one of the deputies' attention, just raise your hand and they'll let me know. Okay, with that, I'm going to turn it over to the state of Texas for the bill of indictment. Mr. Cervera, if you could please rise along with your attorney.
In the name and by the authority of the state of Texas, the grand jury of Bexar County, state of Texas, duly organized and paneled and sworn as such at the May term AD 2022 of the 399th Judicial District Court of said county, in said court, at said term, do present in and to said court that in the county and state aforesaid and anterior to the presentment of this indictment, count 1, paragraph A, on or about the 17th day of August 2021, Brandon Cervera, hereinafter referred to as defendant, did intentionally and knowingly, by omission, cause serious bodily injury to Benjamin Cervera, a child who was 14 years of age or younger, and the defendant had assumed care, custody, and control of Benjamin Cervera, and failed to do so, and that the defendant failed to provide adequate nutrition for Benjamin Cervera, the defendant failed to provide adequate hydration for Benjamin Cervera, and the defendant failed to seek proper medical care for Benjamin Cervera. Paragraph B, on or about the 17th day of August 2021, Brandon Cervera, hereinafter referred to as defendant, did intentionally and knowingly, by omission, cause serious bodily injury to Benjamin Cervera, a child who was 14 years of age or younger, and the defendant had a legal or statutory duty to act, and failed to do so, and that the defendant failed to provide adequate nutrition for Benjamin Cervera, the defendant failed to provide adequate hydration for Benjamin Cervera, and the defendant failed to seek proper medical care for Benjamin Cervera against the peace and dignity of the state, signed forward by the grand jury.
Mr. Cervera, to that charge, how do you plead?
Not guilty, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. You may have a seat. And would the state like to make an opening statement?
Yes, Your Honor. Let's see you cry for more bread, bro. Cry for more bread, and I'm going to put your fucking ass in squats. Those are the words of this defendant 4 days before his son died of starvation. 4 days before he died of starvation. I want to talk about Benjamin Cervera for a second. He's the defendant's son. His birthday's September 28th of 2016. So at the time of his death, he was just a little shy of a month before his 5th birthday. At the time that he died, this child was 28 pounds. So let's think about what that means. That this child, while this man is telling him, ask for more bread, bro, or I'm going to put your fucking ass in squats, is dying already. And his response is that. So, what this case starts off with is a good Samaritan, essentially, which is Julia Center. And you're going to hear her testify as to, she was in town. She doesn't live in town, but she was in town for one of her son's doctor's appointments. And she gets flagged down by the defendant's girlfriend, who she lived with at the time. And that she sees Benjamin, and he's just wearing a diaper, and his body's already limp. And that when she sees him, it doesn't even click to her that this child is almost 5 years old. Because she has a young child in her car with her at the same time, too. She sees that Miranda is, which is the defendant's girlfriend. She's on the phone. She's not on the phone with 911. And that she's actually the first person who calls 911. And at the time, when Miranda puts Benji in the car, she actually touches his chest to make sure that at that point this child is actually still breathing. So from there, you're going to see the law enforcement investigation. You're going to hear from several law enforcement officers who saw Benji at the hospital. They saw the defendant and his girlfriend at the hospital. And they also went back to the scene, the apartment where this child was starved for the last 10 months. And what you are going to see is a barrier upon barrier upon barrier to prevent this child from getting food. There's not only a gate at the door, but in the kitchen there are locks on the cabinets where the food is, and there's a lock on the refrigerator. You're going to see evidence that there was actually cameras in the kitchen which captured some of these things. There's actually also a camera in this child's room that captured his nights where day in and day out he's begging for food while Mr. Cervera, the defendant, does absolutely nothing. What you're going to see is also that at some point the law enforcement gets Miranda Casares', which is again the defendant's girlfriend's phone. And in that phone they do an extraction and we get a lot of evidence on this case. Evidence which I anticipate you will see. Number one is that video I talked about at the beginning, where Benjamin, looking like what I can't describe other than, to me, is a concentration camp survivor, eating bread and then begging and then complaining about him eating bread. You're also going to see, I anticipate seeing a video of him standing in the apartment, shivering and saying, "Dad, Dad, can I have some bread?" You're also going to be able to see photographs throughout this period of time where Benjamin, you can see him wasting away day by day. You can see the photo from the beginning to the end, and this child is clearly wasting away. Now, I also anticipate in this trial you're going to find out that the San Antonio Police Department actually was called to this apartment less than a month before this child died. And to put it frankly, at that time, the San Antonio Police Department, they messed up. And they didn't remove this child from a situation. They're going to explain to you, the officer will explain to you why he missed what he missed, why he missed that this child was clearly wasting away. You'll see videos of him. When you'll see him when EMS is checking him out, you can see on his back in between his ribs. Finally, but additionally, I anticipate you'll hear from some lay witnesses who Benji had, had control, had taken care of Benji prior to him becoming into the defendant's custody. Those are to include the defendant's own sister, as well as Benji's maternal aunt. And both of them will talk to you about how Benji, he could eat, no problem eating. He had no problem gaining weight. And then lastly, you're going to hear from, I anticipate, two state's experts. The first one is Dr. Kimberly Molina, who is the Bexar County Chief Medical Examiner. And she's going to talk to you about the course and length of her investigation and the steps that she took to get to the right result for what happened, what was the cause of death. Because she's not going to make a rash decision. She's going to look at all of the evidence and give you her ultimate opinion, and that is that Benji was starved to death. She's going to tell you that he had no belly fat. That includes the fat underneath his skin, and that the fat around his internal organs, the mesentery, which should have fat in it, was clear. It was translucent. She's going to provide to you a number of other things that she looked at when ultimately she reached the decision. Most importantly, she's going to talk about the voluminous medical records that she looked at as it relates to Benji, and to show that Benji, for the majority of his life, with the exception of the last 10 months of his life, had no problem gaining weight, that he was following his growth curve, that he was going even into the next growth curve. It's just that last 10 months of his life that he didn't, where he actually fell off the growth curve. You also hear from Dr. James Lucifer, who is just retired, but he was the former director for the Center for Miracles. He is a board certified child abuse pediatrician. He was actually in the first group of people to ever be board certified in child abuse pediatrics. He's actually published on starvation. And he did that same review that Dr. Molina did. He looked at all of the medical records. He looked at the autopsy. And what he will tell you is that this child, at the time of his death, was suffering from starvation. The evidence in this case is going to be overwhelmingly clear. It's only going to lead you to one decision. And that decision is that this defendant is guilty of starving his 4-year-old to death. At the end of this trial, the state's going to ask that you find the defendant guilty. Thank you.
Ms. Flores, would you like to make an opening statement?
Yes, Your Honor, if you could just give me a few minutes to set up.
Yes, ma'am.
If it please the court, state, may I proceed? All right, well, my name is, as you know, is Jody Sawyers, and I'm here representing Brandon. And what we want to know is what everybody else wants to know is why Benji died. It has not been resolved by what the medical examiner tells you. We absolutely disagree with the state on the cause of death. But what we can tell you is that it absolutely was not starvation, dehydration, or failure to seek medical care. As the state pointed out, this is Benjamin. The evidence is going to show that he died on August 17, 2021. This is the photo of Benjamin 3 hours before he passed. Benjamin is a 4-year-old boy. He was born September 28th, and I apologize, it's wrong on there, September 28, 2016. He was born with Mongolian spots on his back, which looked like bruises, and they covered a substantial part of his back, and he had those since birth. Now, there are going to be pictures that you see in the trial, or we anticipate you seeing, and I want you to understand that it's not bruising all down his back, because that would be misleading, and you would not want to be misled in that way. But people who don't know that he was born with those would misunderstand. He spent the first 2.5 years of his life with his biological mother, Erica Flores, and during that time he was born premature. He was told at the hospital that by his mother was told that he would always have issues with failure to thrive and other issues. And the medical records will substantiate that they note on there and they give her these kind of forewarnings. January 2019, and he never got over the 5th percentile in weight at any point during his mother's care. January 2019, Benjamin is going to come live with Brandon, and you are going to see that the medical records will show that within a year of living with Brandon, he has gotten close to the 25th percentile in weight. Miranda joins the picture around February of 2020. Now, they have a child, and we're going to get into the family dynamics that the evidence is going to show, but they have Mariah January 2021, and that's how you know, like when you backtrack, it's a year before they get together. All right. Benjamin's family. He is a family in a house full of 4 children. He has a big brother named Brandon Jr. that I believe was approximately 9 years old at that time. He also, Benjamin was 4 years old. He had a stepbrother, Leonidas, who is 3. And then he has a half-sister, Mariah, who's 8 months old. So there's 4 kids in the family, and they kind of have a traditional family dynamic. Mariah stays home with the kids, and Brandon goes and works, and so he's gone Monday through Friday, you know, anywhere 8 to 5 or 8 to 6, but it's Miranda who is doing the heavy lifting at the house. She is taking full care of all these kids. Brandon Jr. starts school August 9th, which is approximately 2 weeks before Benjamin passes. During this time, Miranda is waking up all of the kids every morning and putting them in the car to take Brandon Jr. to school. What you'll hear or see in the evidence, because the officers are going to be observing the unannounced, they're going to make a visit on July 20th, 2021, and when they do appear, the apartment is clean, it is stocked with food, it's decorated in an educational way. It has letters and stuff on the walls, posters of a map. Someone who cares, right? The state is going to be required to prove beyond a reasonable doubt, not that Benjamin starved to death or was dehydrated or was deprived of proper medical care. We're here to tell you that none of that happened. Now, how do I know that none of that happened? Because the evidence points in that direction. This is not a sensational argument about one misstatement by a parent. It is the overall evidence that will show you. Medical visits alone, from July 20th, the evidence will show, to August 17th, 10 plus medical professionals saw Benjamin. This is not a child that is being hidden. It also doesn't even include all the nurses, but they're mandatory reporters, and if they thought that something was wrong, they definitely would have been in a position to be the people to sound the alarm. Those 10 plus medical professionals are going to be made up of 4 EMS people on July 20th, 21, and 4 police officers. You're going to see here evidence that 3 to 5 doctors see him the very next day between the Pearl ER and what's called, we call CHOSA, which is the Children's Hospital of San Antonio, and there's in the Center of Miracles. Which Center for Miracles really evaluates cases for child abuse. And this case was looked at extensively on July 21st, 2021 by professionals who are trained, including Dr. Lucifer. On July 26th, he's taken to Little Buddies, and on August 10th, he's taken to an ear, nose, and throat doctor, and he's weighed in each of these instances. Doctors are made aware that there has been an accusation of malnourishment and that Benji has struggled to gain weight. The July 20th, what the state referenced and the evidence is going to show is that there was a report made to, I don't know if it's law enforcement or CPS, by Brandon's relatives. And they claim that Benji, they've seen photos of Benji and he looks malnourished, like he might have lost weight, he's regressed back into diapers. They're going to claim that they saw 2 black eyes, but they're also going to tell you they have no personal knowledge of anything that's going on, but they're going to blame Miranda. They think Miranda has done something to the kid. So police come out, and there's 4 police officers plus 4 EMS, and they're all in the apartment observing the family. And what they do is they interview the parents and they interview the kids, and everybody's cooperative, and nobody is claiming that they're hungry or haven't been fed. You're gonna see, like I mentioned earlier, that there's food. Now, also at that time are these locks on the doors of the refrigerator, as the state pointed out, and of cabinets. Interestingly, they're not locked. And the evidence is going to show that while they are there, every single time the officers come, they're not locked. They are put there as people may when you have little babies to keep them out, but Benjamin was able to get in and out of those mechanisms and into the refrigerator, and you're going to see, we anticipate you seeing video surveillance each time he was able to do it, and that there wasn't food being withheld. The next visit was the Pearl ER, and he weighed 14.6 kilograms. Now, the evidence will show that this 1 liter bottle weighs 1 kilogram. And that 1 kilogram is 2.2 pounds. This is 2.2 pounds. Evidence will also show that a bottle this size is half a liter, and so it's gonna weigh 1.1 pound, right? Now, that same day they go to CHOSA, there's a full medical workup, as I mentioned. We have CT scans, MRIs, labs, all of that. When he is released from CHOSA, he is released with the only thing that is asked is that he do a follow-up with a pediatrician and go see a behavioral specialist because they suspect autism and behavioral issues that are affecting the child. Child Protective Services sees him somewhere around July 21st, right? You know, everyone's involved right up front. Parents are interviewed, children are interviewed, there's no outcries of any inability to get food or any abuse. Because if there were, Child Protective Services, as you will find out, has the ability to remove children. They don't even need to have a hearing. If they think that it is that a child is in danger, they can remove the child without a hearing, without a court order. Little Buddies, a week later, he's seen at Little Buddies. Again, this pediatrician who is you'll see the records from him, he doesn't think that there's any concern with, and he is aware as well of the claims of malnourishment. The ENT of San Antonio will put in his records, well nourished and in no acute distress. This is 7 days before Benji passes. Miranda Cossidis is the stepmom in this case, and we believe she came into the picture around February 2020, and she was there through August 17th of 2021. So for a year and a half, you're gonna see the medical records are gonna show that this child did not have any issues under Miranda's care. Now, when there's gonna be the babies born in January 2021, they move in March of 2021, all right? This is now March to August, 5 months before Benji passes. These are life stressors that are going to affect the whole family dynamic. And these additional stressors may have resulted in Miranda having postpartum depression. We'll never know because she wasn't, we didn't look at it that way. CPS didn't evaluate her for that. But it's possible that she had postpartum depression. She's exhausted, she's not getting sleep. The evidence is gonna show that she's staying up all night to care for Benji, who is repeatedly crying at night. Now, on August 17th, the night before, you're gonna hear, we believe, the evidence is gonna show that there is a disagreement between Brandon and Mariah. And Brandon calls Mariah out on having raised her voice at Benji. The evidence is not going to show that Brandon had any awareness that Miranda had done anything to this child other than raise her voice. And that's what he's saying. Why are you raising your voice at him? You don't raise your voice to Leonidas. And he tells her, look, if he didn't want the water, you can hear in the recording, if you didn't want the water, just close the door, come in here, close our door, lay down, and go to sleep. He's telling her, go to sleep. She doesn't go to sleep. Next morning, she wakes up, at some point, if she does go to sleep, I'm not sure, but she has to have Brandon Jr. at school. So she wakes all the kids up, puts him in the car, takes Brandon Jr., and you're gonna see video recordings of Benji in that car. And he is melting down, and he is crying for bread. And if you take that video in isolation, it might seem pretty horrific. I understand that. But what you're not seeing is what all is happening before it and all the food that this child and water is being provided. We're not going to deny that this child always has suffered or been at risk for failure to thrive. And when you have life stressors and you have other potential medical issues that have not been ruled out, you are creating potentially this perfect storm where this child passed away, but not because anything that Brandon did or failed to do. He had no awareness that this child was being starved. And as you can see by the very, as that picture showed, this is what he was seeing. Now, there's going to be multiple people that see this child, or excuse me, that are going to be called to testify with their theories of the case. And Dr. Molina, she does the autopsy on August 18th, and she cannot determine a cause of death. She is going to wait until February of 2022 to issue her finding. And she's only going to issue her finding after she speaks to Detective Size. And Detective Size is going to come in there and have cherry-picked the videos that he shows her that starts this whole thing in motion to believe that potentially this child is starved. Now, we anticipate having other experts come and testify to help you understand why we know beyond a reasonable doubt that this kid was not starved and was not dehydrated, and it's going to be in the scientific evidence as well as what you as people who have seen children and yourself will observe, and your common sense. The BMI was within normal ranges, and that's why each of those professionals that were looking at him did not sound an alarm of, hey, let's hook him up to an IV right now. Let's make sure he can have nutrients, that no one's intentionally depriving this child of nutrients. They did not ask for a nutritionalist to come talk to the kid or be advised by the kid. They did not recommend that he keep a journal or that he be weighed every day. And they did not sound the alarm to a parent that, oh my goodness, maybe I should be concerned because the doctors are telling me this child is at a critical stage. No one says that to him. The weight loss from the time that he is at the last doctor on August 10th to his autopsy weight is 2 pounds. Now, there's going to see pictures on August 17th of all this fluid that comes out of this child. There is going to be standing urine in his bed. It's a puddle, and it's soaked up by these shirts or clothing that's there. There is going to be a diaper that is on this child, and it is full to the max, as if someone dumped him in water in a pool and it expanded. You know what that's what it looked like. There is going to be a bowel movement that is large and hard. Now, the thing about the evidence is going to show you is that you can't have urine without having consumed hydration. You can't have bowel movements without having consumed food. This is not stuff I'm making it up. This is what the evidence is going to show you. The child is able to walk, which if you're dying of starvation, you cannot walk. You don't have the energy. You cannot physically, with your muscles, they're gone. He's not going to have any ligature marks on him that tends to go along with kids that are kept from food. He's not going to have, and then they're going to, the evidence is going to show you can't starve to death in a day or even hours. And ultimately, you're going to see a photo or photos of what it looks like when a child's body has died of starvation versus what Benjamin looked like, because without that, we as lay people have no clue. A small child, the evidence will show, does not mean that they are about to die or you should have known they were going to die or that you have done anything wrong to that child. Miranda Costas. You know, I can't say a whole lot about her other than I absolutely know that this child did not die of starvation. What I don't know if she did something though to Benji that day. And I don't know if it's because she had postpartum depression and she snapped. You're going to hear evidence of her rising frustration with this child, a special needs child. She's sleep deprived and she has 4 other kids in the house. It's possible that she suffocated the child or did something to prevent the child from breathing, and that the medical examiner never considered that and cannot rule it out. Miranda is the last person to see Benjamin alive, and she is the only person that he is with from 6 or so in the morning until he passes. Did he have a medical condition? I don't know. And let me be very clear, I cannot say whether or not she did something to that child, but neither can the medical examiner. And I cannot rule out medical conditions, and you're gonna hear that from the experts. You're gonna hear Dr. Lucifer, and while the state says that he's a state's expert, I believe you're gonna hear, truthfully from him, things that are going to undercut their case. Dr. Eric Christensen, he's a forensic pathologist, and he will be called to explain why he thinks that Dr. Molina may have missed some things. Dr. Gebhard, he's a pediatrician, and he generally testifies for the state. The only time that I believe he's ever testified for the defense is going to be on behalf of Benjamin Cervera. Catherine McKinney, she's a licensed dietitian, licensed nutritionalist, registered dietitian, and then she's certified in diabetes care and education specialist. Dr. Richard Tice is a forensic psychologist, and you may also hear from him. All right, so at the end of this, what I am gonna also say that even if the evidence is gonna show that Miranda did something, that is not the end of the story. Whether she did something or not does not mean that Brandon can do anything of what she was doing. We have absolute evidence that the child had hydration and food and nourishment and food with the bowel movement, and that he had seen many, many doctors over the course of his last month. Reasonable discipline, you will hear potentially. Thank you. You will hear potentially that he had the child do wall squats. That is not corporal punishment. And we believe that at this time, you will also see evidence that he was there for the child, and that Benjamin, as captured on the videos, on July 20th, 2021, was very attached to his dad, and his dad was very caring back to him. Thank you, and I ask that you return a verdict of not guilty, because I believe that is a true and correct verdict in this case.
Thank you, counsel. State, will you please call your first witness?
State calls Julia Center.
Please have a seat. Please raise your right hand. State your full name. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you very much. Ms. Simpson, this microphone is on. You may position it however you need to make yourself comfortable. It is important you have a court reporter right in front of you who is taking down everything that you say. It's important that you speak slowly and clearly for her, and do not speak over anybody. If any of these attorneys stand up while you are speaking, just stop talking, let me attend to them, and then I'll let you know when it's safe to continue. Thank you very much. State.
Morning, Ms. Center. So I first want to ask, in what county do you live?
Live Oak.
And how many children do you have?
2.
How old are they?
2 and 4.
Okay. I want to draw your attention to August of 2021. Did you have occasion in August of 2021 to travel to Bexar County?
Yes.
And what was the purpose of that travel?
I was taking my son to the doctor.
Okay. And how old was your son at the time that you were taking him to the doctor?
2.
Okay. Approximately what part of Bexar County were you traveling in? Like what part of town were you?
I was going to the Corey area.
Okay. From Live Oak?
Yes.
So, did you, on the way to that doctor's appointment, was there anything that had what if anything, drew your attention while you were traveling to the doctor?
There was a lady coming down some stairs from an apartment, carrying a limp child in her arms, waving traffic down. Nobody was stopping.
Where were you when you saw this?
I was driving. I was at the stop sign right on the corner of that apartment complex.
Okay, and where were your children at the time?
My son was in the back seat, and I was pregnant with the other one.
Okay. Do you remember what day this would have been in August of 21?
I don't recall the exact date.
Okay. Who else did you see there? You said you described a woman holding a limp child. Is there anyone else present?
And then when I pulled over, there was another child in the back seat of the car,
Okay.
of her car.
So, you said that you saw her coming down the stairs carrying a child,
Yes.
and you said the child was limp.
Yes.
Did it appear to you that the child was conscious? You said that she had a car, the woman. Where was that?
It was there in the parking lot of the apartment complex.
Was it near to the stairs?
Yes.
Okay. You said that there was a child in the back seat, approximately how old?
An infant baby.
Okay. What did you observe about the child that you described as limp and unconscious?
He was wearing a very saggy diaper, no other clothing. He was very skinny, and at that point when I pulled over, he was in the front seat of the car, breathing but not talking, responding anything. You could see blood coming out of his mouth.
Well, you said that he appeared skinny to you. What about him made him seem skinny?
You could see his bones. He was just very skinny. He had a little bit of bruising on his body.
I want to clarify something. You said that you could see his bones. Do you mean that he had an injury such that bones were visible?
No, I don't think not from an injury.
But, so how were the bones visible?
Skinny.
So he was so skinny that you could see the bones through the skin.
Yes.
It was not that there was a wound that you could actually see a bone.
Correct.
Okay. What bones were you able, do you remember being able to see of the child through the skin?
His ribs and his shoulders.
And that was while he was lying in the front seat?
Yes.
How had he gotten to the front seat?
She was carrying him down the stairs, and by the time I pulled over, that's where she sat him, in the front seat of the car.
Okay. What else did you observe happening on scene while you're coming upon the scene?
She was carrying him down, and she was on the phone with the other hand.
Okay. You say that she was on the phone. How were you able to overhear any part of her conversation?
I pulled over and I had asked her if she had called 911, and she said no, so I called 911.
Okay. So so that led you to believe that she wasn't on the phone tonight.
Correct.
Were you able to figure out from listening who she was on the phone with?
Yeah, she said.
Objection, Your Honor. She has no personal knowledge of who was on the phone.
That's sustained. You do not have to answer that question.
So she represented to you that it was not 911?
Correct.
Okay. And so you called 911? What did you tell them?
That there was a child who was breathing but not responding, and she had asked me to follow her to the hospital at that point, and 911 asked that I stay on the phone with them.
Okay. How long were you on the phone with 911?
I started to follow her to the hospital, and through traffic, we got separated. And then at that point, me and the dispatcher had got off the phone. I was probably on the phone with them less than 10 minutes.
So when was the next, what did you do once you lost her in traffic and you were no longer talking to 911?
I was kind of pulled over and gathered my thoughts, and then later on that afternoon, the dispatcher had called me back and told me that she had made it to the hospital with the child.
Okay, and after that point, did you ever speak to any police officers in association with this case? Okay, so who was the next person to contact you regarding this case? Mr. Villarreal?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you had described him as being skinny. Approximately how much did your 2-year-old weigh?
Objection, Your Honor, it's not relevant.
How is that relevant, Mr. Dean?
The judge is establishing basis of opinion to establish the physical condition of the child.
And Your Honor, she has no, they haven't offered her as an expert, and she has no experience at this point.
Judge, she's a mother that gives her experience with young children and what size they are.
You can ask the witness regarding how she came to the conclusion, but asking her specific questions about the state of her child and the health of her child, that in particular will be, the objection will be granted as to that. He's going to ask her that question.
Do you know who Benjamin Cervera is? The child that you saw. Would it surprise you to learn that that child was almost 5 years old?
Yes.
Why would that surprise you?
So he was very skinny, very small for his age. He was still wearing a diaper.
Your Honor, at this time we pass the witness.
Thank you. All right, so, do you recall the road that you were driving on when you happened to see who you claim is Miranda?
No, ma'am, I don't. I'm not very familiar with the area.
Okay, if I showed you a photo of that location, would that help?
Sure.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm gonna need to ask for exhibit stickers. Do you have several more? I'm showing you what's been marked as defendant's exhibit 1, 2, and 3. Do you recognize that location?
Yes.
Okay, and can you look at the other photos just to be sure? Okay, and so at this location, well, at this stage, Your Honor, I move to admit defendant's exhibit. Are they accurate representations of that location, according to your memory? I move to admit defendant's exhibit 1, 2, and 3.
No objection.
Defendant's exhibits 1, 2, and 3 are admitted and will be published.
Thank you. Alright, so this is defendant's exhibit 1. Can you see that? Alright, and so were you driving where that car is with the lights on? Was this the street you were coming down?
I don't recall which way I was coming from, but it was going to that way, maybe.
Ms. Central, you can take that microphone and move it to the sides. Thank you.
Okay, and so I'm going to show you what's been marked as defendant's exhibit 3, which, I apologize, is going to be from another angle, a side angle of the building. You weren't on this side of the building.
No.
You were on the side of the building that has the sunset in the background. Is that correct? Okay. Now, to be fair, this was at 11 or so in the morning, so
Yes.
wouldn't have had a sunrise or sunset. I apologize, sunrise or sunset.
Correct.
And then this is defendant's exhibit 2, and would you agree with me this is a further out view
Yes.
of that? All right. So I'm gonna
Okay.
Now, just to be clear, you say that you saw her coming downstairs. What did the stairs look like?
Staircase, but I don't recall exactly.
Was it 5 stairs, 10 stairs, you remember?
I'm not sure.
Okay. And do you remember testifying previously under oath that you saw her holding 2 children in her hands?
No, one child.
You don't recall that?
No, no. The other kid was in the back of the car.
How many children were present at that time?
2.
So there weren't 3 children there?
No.
So, I'm gonna show you what's been marked as Defendant's Exhibit 4 through 8. And ask if you recognize that's the area in which you saw Miranda.
I pulled it in right here.
Okay, and if you'll hold on 1 second, I'm gonna ask that you, if you could mark where you pulled in with a J for Julie. And where was, you said that there's a car that you saw that Miranda had a child in.
Yes.
Where you put an M for where the car was located that she was in. All right. And then where is it, if you can, by putting a star, that Miranda was standing when you first saw her, when you first saw her?
What letter do you read?
A star. Okay. And at any point, did you see, besides her standing at where the star or the car that's marked with an M, that's her car, did you see her anywhere else?
No.
It was those locations?
Yes.
Okay. Is this an accurate representation of your testimony that I just questioned you about?
Yes.
At this time, Your Honor, I ask that Defendant's Exhibit 5 be admitted.
Judge, we would object to its admission as a general exhibit, but as a demonstrative, we have no objection to assist the jury's speculation.
May I please see the exhibit? I'm gonna overrule the objection. Defense Exhibit 5 is admitted.
Permission to publish?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm showing you what's been marked as Defendant's Exhibit 5. And you would agree with me that you claim that your car is parked here where the J is?
Yes.
Now, when you were driving up, did you just drive upon her and stop, or did you drive past her and turn around and come back?
I don't recall.
Okay. Did you, and then you say that M, is it where, you have an M that's kind of in between two spots? Is it indicating that she was parked in where the silver, it looks like maybe a Toyota, was, or in the empty spot to the left of the M?
I do not recall the exact parking spot.
Okay. But in looking at building number 1 that has a now leasing sign on it, would you agree with me that you put a star to the left of that building and that's where you claim she was standing?
Yes.
Okay. And so when you see her for the first time, is she walking this way to the car? All right. And was she waving people down?
Yes.
Okay. And waving people down with a cell phone in her hand and a limp child? So the limp child was with her at that time?
Yes.
Did you make a statement, earlier you stated that the only person you talked to after the 911 person was Mr. Villarreal.
Correct.
Do you recall speaking with Detective Size and giving a statement regarding this?
I do, yes.
And would your statement at the time to Detective Size would you be more, would you remember more at that time or today?
I'm not sure.
Like details of the situation?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Now, did you tell Detective Size that there were 3 kids there at the time?
I don't think that I did, no.
And did you tell him at that time that this lady was flagging down people to stop, and she had her limp son in one arm and another baby in another arm, and she was walking down the stairs?
The baby was already in the back seat of the car.
And then, did you also tell him subsequent to that she was walking to her car where one of the kids was already in the car?
Yes.
Okay. So, were you being accurate at the time when you told Detective Size that there were 2 kids in her arm? Or are you being accurate now when you're saying there's only 1?
I remember 2 kids.
And I understand that. But when you saw her at the time, you claimed that she had 2 kids in her arms.
I remember 2 kids being there.
Would Your Honor, can I approach for a second with counsel?
Deputies to the back. Please remember my instructions not to look up anything regarding what you've heard or the case, or to read any media or any publications. Thank you.
All right, for the jury, call the please.
Everybody may be seated. Okay, we are outside the jury presence. Ms. Sawyers, did you want to inquire or state, inquire what you'd like to do?
Yes. At this time, I may approach the witness to have her listen to her own statement. Let me just pull it up.
If you, yeah, if you.
And this, I'm just
Here
gonna
we go.
say the discussions between the council are not gonna be on the record.
You may be seated.
Yes, thank you. Okay, Ms. Centaur, after having heard your statement to Detective Size, did you tell Detective Size that there were 3 children that were present?
Yes.
Okay. Did you tell Detective Size that you saw her coming downstairs with a limp son in one hand and another baby in the other hand?
Yes.
Okay. Did you tell Detective Size that she was flagging down cars
Yes.
and that they wouldn't stop?
Yes.
Did you tell Detective Size that during all of this she's on the phone?
Yes.
So I'm gonna also approach, if I may, Your Honor, again.
Yes.
Okay. Now I'm showing you what has been marked as your Defendant's Exhibit 5, but you can see your stars over there on the, if you will, the left-hand side of the screen, correct? And if I show you Defendant's Exhibit 2, you can see the corner, if you will, of your star. If I were to, and this is, it's a little fuzzy because of the mechanism, but the photo is not fuzzy. But would you agree with me that your star would have been somewhere around here?
Yes.
Okay, at this corner, correct? All right. Now, I'm showing you what's been marked as Defendant's Exhibit 3, which is a side angle of that same corner coming around, right, where she was standing. Would you agree with me that there's no stairs anywhere around there?